Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar news update video. So we'll jump straight in here with the most notable piece of news here, and that is the reveal of a brand new Avatar comic. It's a reprint, but like it's the first time seeing a collected edition of these comics. This is the Fire and Family Treasury boxed set. So the reveal here is of course that yes, like Team Avatar Treasury, they are doing a boxed set first as a collected edition for the basically Avatar one-shot number 4, 5, and 6. So Azula in the Spirit Temple, Bounty Hunter in the Tea-Brewer, and Ashes of the Academy. This is coming out September 16th, 2025. So actually only like a 6-month gap between Ashes of the Academy coming out and the release of the first collected edition. Now, of course, this makes sense because what this is effectively just the standard releases all put in a slipcase box. So the only new aspect of this is of course the slipcase box that has the new kind of collected cover, which is very nice, by Peter Wortman and Adele Matera. So you can see it's done very much in the style of the Team Avatar Treasury cover, where it is a montage cover highlighting that they are 3 separate comics, where you have the character of the one shot, the location in that one shot, and then we move on to the next character, the next location, and so on. So we have Azula, Iroh and June, of course, Mai and Zuko. Not Mai and Ki is kind of interesting, but I guess they like to have Zuko here just because it will probably help to sell collected editions a little bit better, having Zuko on the cover because he's such a popular character. Stuff like that always is going to be factored in, but you also have the Academy here in the corner, so that makes sense. So the actual core comic content of this is identical to everything that we have. It's just the standard releases. There'll be no extra content here like concept art. The new aspects of this are just that it comes in a slipcase, of course, and that you get a poster. So the poster is just the cover image, of course, and then on the other side you get a full art page basically from Azula in the Spirit Temple, along with some of the kind of licensing marketing stuff here at the back. So I think the art for the cover is very nice, but I think we've all learned our lesson a little bit from what happened with Team Avatar Treasury, which was, of course, they started with the box set, but at the time, we didn't know, like, hey, this is our first time seeing this. Like, is this a new thing they're doing? Is this replacing omnibus editions? Is this replacing library editions? We just didn't know until relatively recently that, you know, they are actually doing those other collected editions for the other one-shot comics. So, of course, we know at this point that the library edition is already out for Team Avatar Treasury. It's on my shelf over there. The omnibus edition for the first one-shot trilogy, Team Avatar Treasury, is out November 11th, 2025. So they've taken a little bit of time to get to this. So if you do wait, the takeaway from this, of course, is if you wait long enough, Fire and Family Treasury will be available as an omnibus or library edition just further down the line. So you don't really need to focus on this edition of it unless you just really like what it is, you like the poster, you like the box set. But for me, I only got this because I thought it was maybe a replacement. I don't feel any drive to get this, and I will happily wait for the library edition and the omnibus edition. That's my thoughts on this. And I think that's my general buying advice for anyone as well. I get why they kind of like to maybe do this because it's probably a relatively simple thing to put together, and before they get around to the more kind of complex collected editions. But again, remember, if you want all the extras, that like concept art extras and stuff like that, annotations, they will be in the annotations, of course, will be in the library edition, and the concept art extras will of course be in the omnibus as well. So yeah, that's just the way it is with this. I think ultimately, I think most people settled on, yeah, I only bought the box set because I thought the other stuff wasn't going to happen. And it looks like that's just the same thing again, ultimately, is that probably very reliant on people not thinking ahead and picking this up ahead of time. But who knows? Maybe if you haven't bought the individual books, maybe you want this as your way to get the individual books. That's one way to think about it. So yeah, it's going for like $39, which is effectively just the individual price of the 3 books added together. So you're effectively getting the poster and the box set for free. So that's the idea there. Last thing to talk about here is just the Fire and Family Treasury name. So they're keeping Treasury as like what they're calling 3 one-shots collected together. It's a treasury of 3 stories. This one is Fire and Family versus, of course, the first one was Team Avatar Treasury. That made sense because the theming there was the kind of female members of Team Avatar each getting their own story, so that made complete sense. This one is a little bit more complicated because, of course, the focus of these books is Fire Nation characters, but it's not like a specific obvious set. Azula, Iroh and June, and May. So it's not like Azula, May, Ty Lee, which is a pretty clean set. They're not all members of the royal family because, you know, May is the focus of Ashes of the Academy, even though Zuko is there. I think this is where, you know, they insert Zuko in there and it suddenly makes a little bit more sense, but like it's not quite perfect. I get it. Like if you really think about it and stretch it a little bit, yeah, they're all Fire Nation characters. Family is sort of a part of all of these books in some way, in that Azula in the Spirit Temple is Azula kind of reflecting on how she feels about her family, how her family and friends feel about her. The family in the Iroh book is more through the June side of things, but also you do touch a little bit on Lu Ten because you go into the backstory surrounding kind of what happened there to a certain degree. And again, family's maybe not the absolute focus of Ashes of the Academy, but still it's Ursa and Zuko talking about Ki at the start. Ki is in the book. They're discussing Azula a little bit. May and her family is in it to a little bit. So Fire and Family, it's fine, and given how ultimately kind of vague the one-shot kind of connection is as a trilogy, it's a lightly connected kind of theme type thing with these. They're not really trying to say that these are super heavily kind of planned to just thematically link together perfectly. It's fine. It's just a title to call the collected editions something or other, and I think it's fine. I'm assuming we'll get into more weird sets of characters as we continue on, and they'll struggle to call it something interesting even more as we go forward. Next piece of news is this. So Fortnite announced this. Now straight away, this is not Wave 2 of Avatar skins items coming to Fortnite. This is Fortnite stuff coming to the UEFN Fortnite kind of creative modes. So a lot of those items are going to be now available to use if you're creating stuff using those creative modes. Now, they're highlighting that it's coming in 2026, so it's quite a while away. So it means there is time in the meantime for potentially more Avatar stuff to come into the game. If I was to really like link it all together, I'm like, is it really adding that much stuff just saying that the Avatar stuff is coming to the creative mode? Because like it was a couple of items like the weapons, the bending weapons, and bits and pieces here and there, a few bits of scenery and stuff like that. So it kind of feels like to maybe make this into a proper event in 2026 when this stuff gets added in, it probably has to be on the back of more Avatar stuff being there. Now my own personal thoughts are that I think the first Avatar stuff did well enough that if a lot of other stuff in Fortnite is getting Wave 2s, I think Avatar definitely deserves to get a Wave 2, like in terms of more core characters to round out that set of characters. There's obviously a few Avatar characters that they definitely feel like they need to do in terms of like Sokka, Azula, Iroh are probably the really obvious next ones. And there's so many ideas for like items that they could do as well. So while this itself by itself is not really the big Fortnite news that maybe we want, it's a good sign that like they're highlighting something with Avatar going into the future, and especially with, you know, the movie coming, the series coming, you have to assume a lot of these collabs are going to be absolutely on the table for new Avatar content. And that's really, really interesting to consider. So just, you know, hey, something positive in the news happening for Fortnite and Avatar, even if it's not the big thing that we necessarily want. The next one is kind of hard to explain because, as you can see, since yesterday, the account that posted this was taken down. Now, I could probably find the images that were posted somewhere else, but they're not necessarily things that I want to maybe show in the video, just because if the account's getting taken down, I assume the video would get taken down, copyright stuff, and I don't want to mess with that. So this is just going to be a kind of, hey, I will explain to you what happened here, look online and try and find the stuff that's relevant yourself. So as you can see from my tweet where I retweeted this yesterday, is that the Aang movie design shown via Sonic racing game leaks? And yes, the answer is yes, it was. So what happened yesterday is that there were big leaks for the upcoming Sonic kart racing game, Sonic Racing Crossworlds, which is out at some point later this year. I'm guessing the release date will be announced at one of the big events coming up soon. But anyway, what happened here was that we got leaks of a lot of characters, and mainly, basically, non-Sonic IP collabs, basically, that are going to be in the game. So a lot of this was Paramount stuff, because again, the Sonic movies that are coming out are Paramount, so Sonic is kind of connected in that way. And what we got was that I think there was some like TMNT stuff. SpongeBob was the big one because there was actual gameplay footage of SpongeBob racing the Sonic characters. So that was a big one. And then there was some concept art clearly showing Avatar stuff, like multiple pieces of concept art showing Avatar stuff in the game. Now, the big one, of course, is mainly the first image, which is Aang on a basically extreme gear hoverboard thing that like one of the characters from Sonic Riders would be riding on, which is in this game. But it's an Air Nomad glider kind of staff type thing. Looks pretty cool. I assume it's not meant to be really relevant to Avatar. It's just Aang's glider shaped like a board to be kind of thematic in that way. But the significant thing is the Aang character design that they seem to have, which was very clearly the Aang movie design. Because straight away, it wasn't the book 1 Aang design, it was not the book 3 Aang design, it wasn't his comic design, or really anything else. The only thing it resembles is the one image that we have from the movie from 2023. It really resembles that. It's slightly different, but again, we did see that image so long ago. But still, the core of the way the outfit looks, which is again very different than his typical looks, especially in the kind of upper kind of cloth kind of area, it was absolutely the movie design here. And that's exciting, because straight away it's like, oh cool, like our second look at the Aang movie design is through leaks for a Sonic racing game. That's just a hilarious kind of thing to happen. Now, in terms of, I suppose, logistics, I'm not really sure what the situation is here, because if the Sonic game is maybe scheduled for, I don't know, like an October, November release or something like that, I'm assuming the point of a lot of these IP collabs is that they're coming into the game maybe a little bit afterwards as more like DLC stuff. So the Aang stuff was, I think, but just by default, maybe planned for, you know, the original release date up until like a few weeks ago was January 2026, very end of January. So January, maybe February kind of 2026, coming into DLC in the game as a collab with the release of the movie. The movie's now been pushed back to October 2026, so I'm assuming it gets pushed back in the game as well. Now, they don't maybe necessarily have to full-on delay it super heavily, in that once that Aang design is revealed, because I'm assuming it's probably just going to be the main characters in their new designs maybe, and not really anything spoilery necessarily. So once maybe a trailer's out, they can maybe get it out a bit earlier, but it does highlight that it is probably something that will be a little bit delayed later on coming out for Sonic Racing. But yeah, I think just the fact that one, it's been taken down kind of highlights a few things, in that, okay, it's leaks for a game and it's stuff that they probably wanted to reveal soon just from like Sega. But then there's also the element here of it's the collab with Paramount as well. And the fact that it did effectively show off the Aang movie design for only the second ever time probably is another reason for why it was taken down ultimately here, even though, of course, it still exists out there on the internet. You can find it. But just interesting that, like, there's a little bit of a glimpse into some of the way they're going to do marketing with the movie is that, well, video game collab. Who knows what else they're going to be doing once we get closer to the time. So that's kind of just something worth talking about. Final piece of news is the Voyage of the Unity Avatar Legends AMA that they did. So again, they've talked about this in some of their previous updates. It happened yesterday. I don't really have a lot to say about most of their answers, because I think they've ultimately been pretty communicative on the Kickstarter itself, so there maybe wasn't too much else to really talk about here. There's two questions I want to maybe highlight the answers to. The first one is the very obvious thing that I've been going on about in my videos. Why isn't there a hardcover book with all the content for this campaign? And what would it take for that to happen? They even expressing the idea that it would be kind of be a deal breaker for this person if a hardcover is not a factor in this at all. So very hardcover focused question, as in, why isn't there a hardcover, and what will make a hardcover happen in the campaign? Do they answer the question? And I would say not really. They kind of do, but not really. They do what they've been doing to all the hardcover questions on the Kickstarter, and that is evade properly answering the question. And that is, you can see here, thanks for this question, there have been a lot of comments about how we're delivering the adventures for this campaign, and specifically why we're doing them as booklets versus a hardcover. Here's why. And you think like, okay, here's why they're not doing a hardcover. That should be number one. But they never say that. They just say, this is why we're doing it as booklets. But without actually saying, here's why a hardcover is not even on the table or anything like that. And again, it's their usual kind of, in my mind, pretty garbage response of just like, we like booklets. Booklets are easy to use as a GM. Looking stuff up is easier in a short booklet versus a big book. And it's like, why are you criticizing all the previous Avatar Legends releases to kind of big up your thing? Like, it's such a bad way, I think, to go about doing this as well. And they rarely mention the idea of like a hardcover here. They're kind of diminishing that format of like, here's why you shouldn't want that and you should want this, without actually saying like, and the reason you're not offering a hardcover as an option anywhere in this at all, it's just like, this is the way we do things. And that's it. And they're like, and the slipcase is going to be cool too. They really like booklets. And it's like, it doesn't really answer the question. And it's really noticeable that it doesn't answer the question. And especially because I highlighted in my previous video that a bunch of months ago on the Reddit, this very account answered this question prior to the campaign, saying that there's apparently some sort of a licensing restriction that is actually the reason for why they can't do a hardcover. And if that's the case, why can't you just say that? That we can't do a hardcover because of licensing issues, and also we tend towards booklets in the first place. That would be understandable, because that way it's ruled out. There are reasons, technical reasons for why they can't do a hardcover, but they're not saying that. Instead, they write 4 or 5 paragraphs about how much they love booklets. It's just like, guys, come on. You've got to be better than that in terms of answer the question asked. And then the only other one I want to mention is much further down here. And it is, any updates on the Spirit World supplement? And so we do get a response here. We're still working with Avatar Studios on Spirit World. We'll have more news on it eventually, but for right now, know that it's still on the agenda with them. So that's good to know. We did get an update, I think, from the Discord, like, I don't know, 6 months ago or something like that, maybe even longer. So we've had a somewhat recent update that it's definitely still happening. But again, we then go through the release of the Iroh book, the weirdness around how long it's taken for this Kickstarter to happen. But ultimately, Magpie themselves have been kind of quiet in the middle of all of this, because where's their next book? Is it this or not? And then when are they going to announce this? You know, is this going to be something that gets talked about at San Diego Comic-Con? Because again, it's very notable. The Kickstarter, they're going to deliver that stuff in September next year. Really long time away. So it would be nice if they could get the Spirit World book out before then. But I'm not really sure what the situation is. So yeah, that's really all there is to say here. Everything else, I would say, ultimately has already been basically covered via the Kickstarter and stuff like that, and there's not too much else to say. But yeah, in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are. Fire and Family Treasury, what are your thoughts on this? Continuing the box sets, but we basically know they're going to do the other editions as well. What are your thoughts there? Does this interest you at all, now knowing that they still do omnibuses and library editions? What are your thoughts on this and what specifically it means? I've got to admit, there is still an element of me that's kind of like, I'm not really sure what the news necessarily really is with this as such, and I hope there's more to it. And then, did you see these leaks before they kind of went down, showing off the Aang movie design in the Sonic game? What are your thoughts there? But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.